Today's Vinyl Community Podcast is part of my Vinyl Legends series. This is part 2 of my 2-part interview with audio mastering legend Bernie Grundman.
I don't know whether there's many that, I know there's some that I really did do major equalization on. There have been some, though, where I put them up and I say, well, you can get a lot more out of this. It depends on what their monitors were. It depends on a lot of things, why it might have happened.
Sure.
But there are, it does happen, though, where I manipulate it quite a bit and change it. Usually they aren't finished product. They're like a mix will come in that really has the wrong focal point. There are things like that where, like there are some albums where they have a lot of percussive things and stuff like that. I'm not sure what the artist was, but I remember there was one that they zeroed in too much on the bottom end and to get the feeling and the rhythm and the feel there. But it was also like a Latin record that had a lot of high frequency instruments and things to make sound, the chimes and bells and all kinds of things that contributed to it, that is part of that type of music. And so when I put it up, I thought, well, that's quality's good. Mm-hmm. It's all there. It's just it's subordinated to the bottom end. It should be up there contributing more. But and because of the type of music too, those things are all those rhythmic things that come from all those metallic things or whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. Are part of what this music is about. Sure. So there are things like that'll happen, but then I'll send them a test ref. I'll say, look, I think this thing's going to have a lot more excitement if all this other stuff comes out. It's been subordinated, and sure enough, they usually like it. But I'm just relying on just what I'm feeling, and hoping that I'm getting in touch with what's important in the music. Right. And that's why I was saying earlier that it helps to spend a lot of time with any type of music. And the more types that you know about, you get a better idea of what makes them communicate the best. Right. And now you have a kind of a criteria on how to go about it, or what you're looking for, or what should be coming out, because whatever it is that you're using now as your benchmark of that type of music is still more exciting than what this new guy brought in. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to bring his up to that kind of excitement and connection emotionally. Right. So, that's part of it.
It's part of the magic, as they say.
Well, hopefully we hit on the right combination.
Right.
Because it can be, some stuff is almost impossible.
Yeah.
It does happen. It does happen.
Yeah, well, you can't, what's the old saying, you can't polish a turd, I guess.
Yeah, you can only do so much. You can only do so much, because some things, in the 70s, some of these guys would spend so much time in the studio, they weren't hearing very well. And everything was so harsh and hard to do anything with. Once it gets really bad quality and harsh like that and so forth, and then if you try to make that a little more comfortable, the instrument goes away, because what they've done is they've made it too thin and too sharp, and only primary frequencies of that instrument. And when you do that, there's nothing left. Yeah. So if it's sticking out of the darkness, but it's real edgy and harsh, you can't in mastering. Yeah. You can't really change the sound of it, because that's all that's there. They've kind of used equalization to make it stick out, but it's now so thin that it's not comfortable. But so you have all these kind of things that can happen, and in mastering, there's no way that we can bring the bottom back out on it, because it's been taken away. Right. It's just not even there anymore. Right. So there are those things that happen, but the main thing is to have enough experience in all this stuff to know what you can do and what you shouldn't do.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. Sometimes. Well, yeah, it is that way.
One quick back to Steely Dan, just because I meant to ask you when, because that was like a dual release from the analog side for Chad, and then Universal was doing the one. So you would just take the master tape and make a flat copy to digital to send off then?
Well, no, I don't think we do. We usually did what we did.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
No, we would make a digital.
So whatever you did in terms of say tweaking or whatever you did.
A lot of times we do that. Yeah, we're creating a new master.
Okay.
A new way of doing this recording, and if they're going to re-release that as well, the CD, we make it the same.
Okay.
It's
gotcha.
It's the same sound, basically, except it's whatever happens when it goes through that process of going to a CD, which it will change. But.
So, and I know you can't answer for somebody else, so the intent maybe is that they're not tweaking what they're getting. They're not tweaking.
They usually are told that it's an example of the mastering that went on.
Want a flat transfer, then they want. Okay. So discussing the arena around the Steely Dan releases, I wanted to come back to this issue about how the mastering was presented for digital to get to the $30 version. And so Bernie gave me his answer, and after I thought about it and really was going back on the video to consider what he had said, I wanted a little more specificity. And so what I was told was that, in fact, the original releases of the first 4 or 5 albums that came out in the series were mastered by Bernie and then sent to Alex Abrash for most of these. One of the cuts, the cut for Countdown to Ecstasy, was actually cut by Daniel Krieger at SST in Germany. But the other 4, Can't Buy a Thrill, Pretzel Logic, Asia, and in fact Gaucho, were done for lacquer cuts by Alex Abrash, but they took a master process that Bernie had done, and that was the file that was sent to Alex. Now, the last 2 that were released, Katie Lied and Royal Scam, were actually then sent to Sterling, and they were mastered and cut by Joe Nino Hernes. So there was a change there toward the end. There was an article in the Tracking Angle by Michael Fremer about how much better Katie Lied was than the previous releases, and he believed that that was a testament to Sterling doing that mastering. And then Sterling, in fact, did the last one that came out, Royal Scam, which was also better. I had an issue with the first digital releases that had come out. Some people disagreed, but that was my opinion. So I can see why this changed, and I can also see why Bernie had talked about the fact that he had been sending them a mastering process that he had done on digital. Now, the ones that were done at Sterling were flat transfers. So there was nothing that was done by Bernie to change anything in the setup or in the mastering. They were straight sent as flat files, and then if Joe did something at Sterling, whatever he did or didn't do, the outcomes were much better. So just to kind of put a bow on that issue.
I do a lot of that actually for other studios that don't want to go back into vinyl.
Oh.
And they send us their master, their digital master.
Okay.
Because it's so complicated to do vinyl that they don't even want to get back in it. People that were in it. They don't want to, when it came back and started to get popular again, they don't want to put in all that equipment, and it's much more complex than digital stuff.
Sure.
Because it's got all this mechanics, and it's got all this things that have to be working mechanically so that the groove is formed right, it's spaced right, it's got and it's all automated, and it's all computerized, and it's got all these different functions that can actually get out of alignment. So we don't want that to happen. So But usually, yeah, those if we're remastering something and for vinyl or whatever, there's only a few things we might change. But if they're going to make CDs, they want it to go to a plant that's just going to take whatever we give them and make the CD, or we'll even make the file. A lot of times we make the file for them. We make the CD file.
Okay.
And or whatever file they want, we'll do an EQ'd, but that's what it says on the box. And this is an EQ'd version, the final version, or whatever you want to call it. And so and we get those too from other mastering studios.
Oh, okay.
They'll send a copy of what they did and what was approved by the producer of that, whatever it was.
Right.
Whoever it was, we don't even know. Sometimes we'll get something. All they want us to do is transfer it to the lacquer, the way they did it, and that's what we do. That's a service we give. They know that our system is going to match, at least on the lacquer, exactly what they sent us.
Sure.
And that's why they send them. We get a lot of stuff from all these other mastering places that don't want to get back into disc cutting because it's got a lot of potential flaws and problems and things that have to be looked after all the time. So and that's one of our specialties anyway. So people know that if they send their recording to us, the vinyl will sound like what they send us.
Got it.
And the only thing that's a little different is that we don't have to use any correction that we might have used to do but this would be more for CDs. But sometimes we do it a little bit different that way and let them do something on the other end. Because if it's going to be some kind of transfer that is a little doesn't need to be cleaned up in any way, then we won't do anything to it at all. If we think something needs to be done that's a little off, we might ask them about it. We might talk to them about it. Say, "Boy, I think this recording would probably be better on a disc if we didn't have quite this much bottom, because it gets a little less bright or open or detailed sometimes on when it's a full 3-step process, and that it would be maybe a little more open, sounding more like actually what the digital sounded like or what the original sounded like." So there are a little bit of losses that way, in that things aren't quite as detailed when you get a final pressing. So if they send us over their digital, and they've even lost a little bit by doing that. So we do look at it overall and think, well, it might be good to open this up a little bit, just to have, because it's going to close back down when they press.
I see. Do you find that digital, when you get it and you're processing, that there's limits or things that you kind of go, boy, I wish I could squeeze a little more out of this?
That's right.
Maybe I get with analog tape, but I don't.
Well, digital stuff can have signals that you can't really easily put on a disc, because the only limitation there is peak level in digital.
Right.
One thing about digital is you can put, if you don't clip it by hitting the ceiling with level, you can put anything on there you want. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It won't distort. You might have it in your system, but it probably will give you a copy of what you're sending it. The only problem is, can you play it back on a disc? Because some of those things have so much energy in the extreme top end that most cartridges cannot follow that signal. So that's one thing that we also test for. We try to correct. We have custom made what we call de-essers, but they're really things that just we can adjust them to subdue a little bit of these peaks that might happen on a cymbal crash or something like that we know isn't going to track well on a cheaper or mid quality playback turntable. Yeah, because all these cartridges, that's the hardest thing for them to track is high frequencies, sibilances, cymbal crashes, all this kind of stuff, because that's where the energy is. The RIAA curve boosts the top end, so that it can roll it back off when you play it back and cut down on the surface noise of the vinyl. It was originally decided in 1949 when they developed the 33 1/3 disc, and they needed to go way down in level compared to 78s, way down in level, and they had to find ways of having a recording curve that would, when it does do the reciprocal, it's actually taking down the top end and becoming like a noise reduction. So it's kind of for noise reduction. But when you record it, that high frequency that was maybe really loud on say a digital thing is really way up there in power.
Yeah, because there's no RIA curve thing going on there at all. So,
well, but it puts that in. The cutting system puts that in.
Oh, even on when you're cutting a record, yes. When you're cutting the record, when you're cutting the record, yes.
I mean, if you listen to what's really on the disc, on a vinyl disc, what you find is that it sounds like a tin can. There's no bottom; it's all top. And that's why when you play it back, you have to have the RIAA curve. The bottom end is boosted, and that was done. It was rolled off so that you could. That's what takes up the most space on a disc, is the low frequencies. So they rolled that way off. So they were trying to get more time on each side of an LP,
right?
So for classical music and things like that. So that curve is a curve that you can cut it. It's an easy curve to manipulate, to make in a playback system. It's just rolling off the bottom, boosting up the top. Okay, so both of those things work toward making the disc take more time. So now the bottom's rolled off. That takes the most space on a disc because it's got a lot of lateral in it. And then the top is boosted up so that when you lower it down on the curve, all of any noise or something on that disc, like surface noise and all that, goes down. It's a noise reduction system in a way.
Right.
And so but the curve, when you just listen to it without any correction, is sounds terrible. but it made it possible to go down in speed too. From 78, you went way down in speed, and you were able to get a lot of time on. I mean, I've cut up to 35 minutes a side on a disc with all the automation we have now and the ability for the cutting system to change its depth depending on what it needs to shape the curve. There's all this manipulation that goes on mechanically that has to be all aligned and made so that you don't have skipping problems and when you're playing it. But if you have a big crescendo or something, a rotation before that big crescendo, you see the move, the lathe can be instantaneous. That has a special motor on it, and it moves just before that happens and cuts deeper if it needs to. And it does all these manipulations before that area comes in so that it'll accommodate it and it'll cut it. And then it goes right back to where it was. And so it's trying to save space all the time. So they were trying to make like classical music so that they could put symphonies on the vinyl. They couldn't do that before.
Right.
They had multiple discs, even 78s. So, and that's been with us all along now. That the RIAA curve is the main curve that everybody uses for vinyl. You know, that's our life. We live with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, Bernie, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. It's been great meeting you. And
yeah, it was fun.
Hope to look around here and see a few things as well, how you do what you do, but I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you. Take care.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So there you have it. spent about 2.5, 3 hours in Bernie's facility and enjoyed a lot of the discussion we had both in front of the camera and even before we got rolling, and then some of the things that he showed me in his building and with some other folks. A couple of those snippets I've been putting on the members only side of the channel. So coming up next will be interviews with both Kevin Gray and with Don McGinnis at RTI, and I'll also show the RTI facility with its plating and its pressing and all that goes around what gets done in a pressing plant. So until we talk next time at the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion, take care, everybody.